I want to be honest. When I first saw that headline about Disney struggling with young male audiences, my first reaction was disbelief. How could the company that basically defined blockbuster culture suddenly be losing its magic with them? The thing is, this isn't just about one or two box office flops. This is a deeper cultural shift. Young men between the ages of 13 to 28, the exact group that built Marvel and Star Wars into global powerhouses, are walking away. And I've been thinking about why. Because on paper, it doesn't make sense. Disney still owns the biggest franchises, still has the most recognizable characters, and still has access to budgets most studios can only dream of. But here's the kicker. It's not just Disney. Even DC has been facing the same kind of apathy. These universes that once felt untouchable are now struggling to fill theaters with the very crowd that used to camp outside on release nights. So when the report I read described this as a self-inflicted wound, it clicked. Maybe it's not that audiences changed all of a sudden. Maybe Disney changed in ways that audiences couldn't follow anymore. I mean, think back to 2018 and 2019. Those were the peak years. Marvel was unstoppable, with Infinity War and Endgame turning theaters into collective experiences. Comic book movies didn't just dominate the box office, they defined pop culture itself. For guys in that 13 to 28 age bracket, going to see those films wasn't just entertainment. It was ritual. It was the thing you did with your friends, the thing you debated about online, the thing you waited years to see pay off. But what happens after you've reached the mountaintop? What happens when the story that carried you through your teenage years ends with a perfect bow, and the studio still demands another chapter because profits can't slow down? That's where greed comes in. And I don't say that lightly. Greed has been at the center of why the golden age of comic book films feels like it's collapsing in real time. Disney couldn't stop at success. They had to overdo it. Instead of breathing room, we got saturation. Suddenly, there were 3 Marvel movies a year, multiple streaming shows, spin-offs, prequels, side quests, and crossovers that felt more like homework than fun. And that, I think, broke the spell. Because the young male audience that Disney wants isn't dumb. They can smell when something's being made with passion versus when it's being churned out for quarterly earnings. They grew up online, where authenticity is everything. When you feel like a movie exists only to keep the machine running, you stop caring. You stop showing up. And slowly but surely, that's what's been happening. Those box office numbers don't lie, and they tell a very different story now. Look at how quickly the conversation shifted. A few years ago, Marvel films were guaranteed billion-dollar events. Now, people talk about superhero fatigue, about how nothing feels special, about how everything looks the same. It's wild to think that the same demographic that once couldn't get enough now actively avoids it. 13-year-olds aren't begging their parents to take them opening weekend. 20-somethings aren't planning group outings. The spark is gone. But here's the part that keeps gnawing at me. Disney did this to themselves. The self-inflicted wound phrase sticks because it's true. They misread their own audience, believing that more quantity would always equal more loyalty. And the scary thing is, they might not know how to fix it. You can't just reassemble the magic of 2018 and 2019. You can't rebuild that trust once audiences feel like you've been milking them for every cent. I've noticed something interesting too. When I talk to guys in this age range, many of them don't just say they're done with Disney. They actively resent what the company has become. It feels corporate, sanitized, risk-averse. That resentment comes from a place of betrayal. For years, Disney was giving them stories that mattered, stories with heart, stories that felt larger than life. But lately, those same stories feel hollow, like echoes of what they once were. Take Marvel as the clearest example. After Endgame, there was no clear direction. Characters people loved were gone, and the new ones didn't resonate the same way. It felt less like storytelling and more like setup for the next crossover event. Even Star Wars hasn't been immune. That galaxy far, far away has gone through endless cycles of reinvention, spin-offs, and streaming experiments. Some landed, sure, but others left fans scratching their heads, wondering who these stories were even for. And if you lose sight of who your audience is, you're already in trouble. Disney forgot that young men don't just want endless content. They want meaningful stories, characters to grow with, and worlds that inspire awe, not endless product extensions. What makes it worse is that Disney had the clearest warning signs in front of them. DC was already showing cracks years ago. Their films were struggling with identity, constantly rebooting, and losing touch with their base audience. But instead of learning from those mistakes, Disney repeated them. They thought the Disney logo was enough to guarantee loyalty, that people would keep showing up no matter what. That arrogance is part of why they're in this mess now. And here's where it gets even deeper. Young men today have more options for entertainment than ever. Gaming, YouTube, TikTok, streaming platforms, indie films, all of them are competing for the same attention. And attention is the real currency. So when Disney puts out another formulaic movie, the audience isn't obligated to watch. They can spend those hours immersed in a video game world, watching creators they trust, or discovering new content that feels more authentic and exciting. The result is brutal. Disney isn't just losing ticket sales, they're losing cultural relevance. They're losing the ability to be the default choice. And once you lose that default position, clawing it back becomes nearly impossible. But the tragedy here is that it didn't have to happen. Disney had the keys to the kingdom. They had loyal fans, incredible characters, and unmatched brand recognition. What they lacked was restraint, patience, and the humility to listen. Greed blinded them. Instead of respecting the natural rhythm of storytelling, they tried to monetize every second, every character, every corner of their universes. And the audience saw through it, especially the young men who once cheered the loudest. Now, the question becomes, can Disney recover? Is there even a path back to the level of trust and excitement they once had? Or has the golden age passed for good, leaving only memories of what once was? I think about that a lot, because on one hand, Disney still has the power to pivot. They could slow down, refocus, and commit to quality over quantity. They could tell stories that feel bold again, stories that don't play it safe. But on the other hand, corporate greed rarely slows down voluntarily. Investors want growth, not stability. Executives want franchises, not risks. And the cycle keeps spinning until audiences finally walk away for good, like we're starting to see. What scares me is that this isn't just about Disney losing young men. It's about the collapse of an entire cultural era. The dominance of comic book movies shaped a generation. And now we're watching that empire crumble in real time. And when I say crumble, I don't mean disappear entirely. These movies will still exist, they'll still make money, but they won't hold the same weight. They won't define the culture the way they once did, especially for that key demographic. That's the big Disney problem. It's not just declining profits or weaker box office returns, it's losing the soul connection with the exact audience that gave them their throne. Without that connection, the empire feels hollow. So maybe the real lesson here is simple. You can't manufacture passion. You can't force people to care by overwhelming them with options. At the end of the day, storytelling wins, or it doesn't. And right now, Disney is forgetting that truth. I keep circling back to that phrase, self-inflicted wound. Because if Disney had slowed down, trusted their audience, and remembered what made those peak years special, We might not even be having this conversation today. But here we are, watching one of the biggest entertainment giants struggle to hold on to the very group that once adored them. It's both fascinating and sad, a cautionary tale about what happens when greed overrules storytelling. And honestly, I don't think young men are coming back until Disney proves it's learned its lesson. Until the company delivers something truly game-changing again, something that feels less like a product and more like an event, the distance will remain. Because at the end of the day, audiences want to feel something real. They want to believe in the stories they watch. And right now, Disney has given them too many reasons not to believe anymore.